Hello, everyone. My name is Lydia McIntyre, and I am an engineering supervisor in the Transportation Planning Division. We would like to welcome you and thank you for attending the Greensboro Urban Area MPO public meeting today. And I'm an engineering supervisor in the Transportation Planning Division. The Planning Division is housed in the Greensboro DOT and also serves as staff to the Metropolitan Planning Organization. Thank you for joining us for an overview of the MPO draft documents. Please note this meeting is being recorded and shared and will be later shared on the MPO website. Thank you, Tron. The meeting will include an overview of the draft 2026 to 2035 Metropolitan Transportation Improvement Program, the draft 2028 to 2037 recommended project list, and the MPO ranking methodology. I will provide a high-level overview of the documents, how to review them, how you can provide your comments. Feel free to ask questions throughout the presentation by placing them in the chat box, and we'll address them at the end. I'll start first with some background about the MPO. MPOs are mandated by federal law in areas of urban populations over 50,000. Federal regulations govern the basic responsibilities, requirements, and powers. State law adds responsibilities such as the project prioritization process that we'll talk a little bit about. The MPO is required, as I said, in areas with populations over 50,000 and work closely with local, state, and federal officials on plans and projects for roadway, transit, bicycle, pedestrian, aviation, and rail. But the MPO plays a key role in making it happen in terms of communication, funding, regulatory compliance, and getting the right ideas on the table, and in ensuring a fair opportunity for the public to understand and participate in transportation decision-making, as today with our public meeting. MPOs coordinate actions between localities, the state, and the U.S. DOT. NCDOT, the City of Greensboro, PART, also known as the Piedmont Authority for Regional Transportation, and area towns are the implementation agencies for transportation projects and services like transit. The MPO's work is carried out in close coordination with MPO's technical and policy boards. The technical board is known as the TCC, Technical Coordinating Committee, and consists of staff from various agencies. The policy board is known as the TAC, or Transportation Advisory Committee, and includes elected officials from members' jurisdictions as well as NCDOT. And you can see there on the slide also specifically our towns that are part of the MPO, which we basically cover most of Guilford County with the exclusion of Wissett to the east as well as High Point to the south. This slide just reflects our current Transportation Advisory Committee meetings. You can see that there are members from the City of Greensboro, Guilford County Board of Commissioners, NCDOT, and then we have one small town rep that represents all our small towns. Our chair is Mary Kay Abuzawader, our at-large member of the Greensboro City Council. The documents that we will review today will be shared with the TAC for approval, as well as any public comments we receive. I just wanted to briefly recognize the MPO staff. We are very diverse groups, as you can see, in many different ways, but we work very closely together in developing these documents, as well as supporting project development process for the MPO. This slide provides an overview of the project development process. This varies in length of time depending on the complexity of the project. It may range from 5 up to 20 or 30 years to complete construction for a project. This includes going from planning to construction and identifying funding. The 3 public review documents today represent the project selection phase, that phase shown there in yellow. And you'll see there just to the left where it talks about NCDOT's prioritization, the MTIP. So this is like that second phase. So there's been some background. These projects have been in the MTP or shown up in the CTP or BiPAD plan or transit plans. And now we're going into the next phase, which is the project selection and seeking funding. This is an ideal time to provide feedback on projects because as the project gets closer to construction, the opportunity for feedback is more minimal. So you can always provide feedback, but as we're in the early stages, it's the best time to provide that feedback. I just wanted to highlight here because we are sharing 3 different documents under 2 different years of processing. And so we have the prioritization process, and this is NCDOT's quantitative process for identifying projects for state and federal funding. And then after you go through that prioritization process, it culminate with the MTIP or the Metropolitan Transportation Improvement Program. You can kind of think of it as the state's capital improvement program, like the city has one, local governments have one, but the MTIP is the state's kind of capital improvement program. And the MTIP is NCDOT's document listing projects that have been identified under prioritization process and have been awarded funding. And I'll note for prioritization, and with the MTIP, but prioritization is a state-driven process for identifying the highest needed projects across the state for all modes. And the MTIP, as I stated earlier, outlines funding, phasing, and schedule for specific projects. It is the end product for prioritization. Now I'll transition into providing a high-level overview of each of the 3 documents. I have a couple slides for the documents, but then I'll actually transition over to our MPO website and kind of walk you through it. And we'll first start with the draft 2026 to 2035 Metropolitan Transportation Improvement Program. 2 years ago, the MPO initiated the process for P7.0. After 2 years of analysis, coordination with member jurisdictions, NCDOT, and public review, the draft Greensboro MPO 20 to 26 to 2035 MTIP is now available for review. Here you can see just a brief overview. Here you can see just a brief overview or high-level overview for the MTIP. As I stated, it's a product of prioritization 7.0 process. It is a federal requirement, and the MPO's MTIP or the metropolitan TIP must be a subset of the statewide TIP. It requires public review and TAC approval and includes a detailed listing of funded projects. Now, if you'll give me a moment, I'm going to transition over to our site. Can everyone see the MPO homepage?
Yes.
Thank you. Here you can always visit our MPO website at www.guampo.org. And here you see we have displayed the documents that we have on public review. So I'm going to start with the draft FY 2026 to 2035 Metropolitan Transportation Improvement Program. So just to make sure you all understand, this was like from our prior round. So as you said, well, like I said, P7, P8. So P7 was the a round that we've completed in prioritization. And remember, I said prioritization is the process that feeds up to the MTIP, or is the development process. So we completed the P7 in prior years, and now we have our MTIP document. So I'm going to start there, and then I'll transition us over to P8, which is like our next round of identifying funded projects. So if you click on this link, it will take you here. And the MPO in recent years has transitioned over from just having the paper documents to having our online version, which makes it very easily accessible to many people. You can see here that we have chapters for the MTIP document, so you can go throughout the chapters, get variant. This kind of gives you chapter 1's kind of intro about the MTIP, but then chapter 2 gives you some requirements and details. And I'm going to click here. And you'll notice when you click on each one, you can click here at the top if you want to go to a certain section. This one is not too lengthy, so you can scroll through if you would like. Just to highlight a couple of things. The funding the funding that the project received in the MTIP, that federal and state funding, when it goes through that prioritization process I mentioned earlier, it's distributed through statewide, regional, and division tiers. When you think statewide, I think interstates, I think aviation, I think rail, when you think of type of projects. And then the regional tier, I think you should think U.S. routes, NC routes, things, project transportation projects that are regional in nature. So like if the part would be a regional project. And then when you think division, you should think local roads, local service such as GTA service, Greensboro Transit, agency service. Also BiPED projects fall under the division tier. And just to take you back, I think the chapter that you probably would spend a lot of time with is chapter 3, as well as the modal chapters here. So I'm just going to click on chapter 3 as well. This gives you a very good summary of the projects and the funding that we have received. Here it gives you some background on the federal and state funding levels, as well as that the MTIP has to be fiscally constrained, meaning that the money that you're reflecting is money that you have to allocate. And that's only for the first 4 years of the MTIP. But here in the section 2, you can see that we've received close to $840 million in projects that have been funded for our region, for our MPO region. There was a decrease from it, but there was, with the last round of prioritization, there were some funding restrictions, and many of the projects were unable to be funded. Some of that was due to the hurricane that happened in the West, but funding was restricted for this last round. But we did get some projects, so we are grateful for those. Here you can go through and see how the funding, how it's split out by each tier. You can see here division and regional, with regional having the highest percentage. And then you can see it by category, whether it was roadway, bicycle, transit. And I will tell you, with prioritization process, 90% of the funding in law will always right now go to highway, and then 6% BiPED. So there is a difference where it's a great emphasis on the roadway projects. So you can take an opportunity to look here, and then let me scroll to our highway program. So you'll be able to look at the projects or evaluate what's in MTIP. And remember, again, the MTIP is projects that have been funded for state or federal. So in this document, you'll be able to see like the schedule. So if you have an interest, like you live in a certain area and you want to know, oh, when is that project going to be done? This would be the document in the short term. In the next 10 or so years, this is the document that you want to look at. This just gives you kind of like the table of contents a little bit, or the key for the funding sources that you will see in the tables for each with the highway and the non-highway projects, as well as the work type, which are the phases. So like because projects go through certain phases, like you might have to do some preliminary engineering or identify utilities or right-of-way, and then move to construction. And so we have provided the tables both in Excel format and PDF. So when you click on it, it's going to ask you to download it. So I'll do that. And these tables are the tables that we received from NCDOT. and that we just modified a little bit, like the subset from for our MTIP. But you would be able here, if you open up the Excel, you can go in and search for a project. This includes like the project ID, which is what NCDOT uses to track the project, as well as the descriptions. And then as you scroll over to your right, you'll be able to see the phasing as well as the funding. I will note here too that, let me go down, see if I can get a good example. Sorry you all for scrolling. Let me see if I find a good example. You will see sometimes where the project is broken out and you may see it listed several times. So note that's because maybe it has varying funding sources to cover it. Also, it's broken out that way to show you the phasing. So if we scroll across, you'll see the funding type where it says highway fund here, or local or congestion mitigation air quality where it says CMAQ. The type of phasing, in this case, if I go back to my example project, you have construction, you have the total cost, and then when you scroll back to the top, you actually have the actual years for construction. And usually the first 5 years of the MTIP are considered committed. And that means that if that project is in the first 5 years, it will not have to compete in future rounds of prioritization. But if you do see funding, such as in this project here in the out years, it may have to compete again in the next round, depending on the nature of the project. And you can look at these tables for the highway and then also for the non-highway. So you'll be able to go here, as well as we do include statewide, and the statewide is required because those projects could occur in our area. And in order for them to move forward to implementation, they have to be included in our MTIP document. And two more things I just want to note while we're under the MTIP. You do have the mapping here that you can scroll into, and it's another way to view the projects. So you can zoom in to your area that you may be interested in. I also know you might wonder, well, why is the urban loop showing up? That's completed. But sometimes the funding that was allocated to complete the construction is still being paid back, so they still keep it in the tip to keep track of that. But you can see we have several projects, including a project on I-40 that would go from Freeman Mill over to US 29, which that's really only funded for preliminary engineering. But if we continue up US 29, we have another project. And when you click on it, it'll give you information. And you can scroll up and down to get that information. So the route description, the right-of-way year and construction year, which in this case, right-of-way is in 26, and then construction in 27. So this is a near-term project. So you can click, and then we have another project to the north on US 29, which goes north into Rockingham County, which is for the upgrade of US 29. We can click on that. You can see right-of-ways in 27, construction in 2030. And I'll note here that you can click on to the right and see the legend for what this different symbology means on the map. But this is a great resource. The map is kind of, I think, user-friendly to be able to scroll around and view the projects in addition to the list. Again, if you have any questions, just drop those in the chat and we'll come to those at the end. And I can turn to those. Let me see you all. If you have any questions. Don't see any questions thus far. Staff, can you all confirm that there are no questions in the chat?
I don't see any yet.
So I'll just recap to be sure. So today I share with you all the draft 2026 to 2035 Metropolitan Transportation Improvement Program. This is the listing of projects that have received funding through NCDOT that has been approved by NCDOT. We usually take our action afterwards. That will be funded or have some form of implementation between 2025 and 2036. Then we also shared our 2027 to 2038 project development list, which starts with the P8 process where we solicited from our member jurisdictions to identify or develop the recommended project list. And this list of the projects that we're saying that we have done analysis on, we coordinated with the jurisdictions, and we believe these would be strong projects to submit for prioritization 8.0. And then the third document that we shared was the draft MPO ranking methodology, which is required by the state and has to be approved by NCDOT and outlines how we will prioritize and rank our projects, providing our qualitative input. I will note that with the qualitative input, NCDOT Division 7, who is our close partner and who manages the transportation on behalf of NCDOT in our region here, including Guilford County, also get to provide input. So we work very closely with them during this process. And here on the screen, again, I share the 3 ways that you can submit your comments, as well as I provide a QR code for you to take the survey. So we do have 3 different surveys. Feel free to take them all or just take one, but we do want to get your feedback. And I'd like to thank you for joining us. The documents, again, are available through September 18th. Please be sure to complete a survey and spread the word. Thank you, everybody. And I'll pause just to ask Tyler, did you have anything that I missed that maybe we want to share?
No, thank you, Lydia. Nice job going over everything.
Well, thank you all. This will conclude our meeting. I will stay on for a little bit just in case someone else joins. But please be sure to complete the surveys and share with others. Thank you so much for joining us today.